Hi, so I've been asked to talk to you today about supporting our dyslexic learners in the classroom. So just a brief outline on what dyslexia is and actually understanding it a little better. As we all know, or I'm sure we all know, dyslexia is a learning difference which does primarily affect a student's reading skills. Which then obviously go on to affect other literacy skills, including writing and those sorts of things. Dyslexics do often have difficulty processing information, and that can be given, verbally or seeing information. So when they're looking up at the board or even on handouts or things on the iPad, they do struggle to process that information. And that again obviously links back to the difficulty with the reading, the letters, seeing it, hearing the sounds, all of those things. So, even speaking the information, although for some that will struggle with reading, even just hearing that information can sometimes be difficult. But if they are supported correctly and given time, then that is something that they can overcome. And so obviously all these things then affect their learning going forward. Dyslexic learners can also struggle in areas such as, organisation, getting themselves organised, getting their bags packed, getting homework sorted, but even organisation of their work. So putting things down on paper, organising their thoughts, even organising their thoughts in how they're going to speak, how they're going to say something to you. Again, it all comes back to that processing and getting it right in their head, getting it right on the piece of paper. So that's a little bit about them. Small things can make a huge difference to them though, and I've put a little link on here that maybe this could be sent out for you to just have a look at that dyslexia being described, and it's called See Dyslexia Differently. I think it's really important that we understand, that yes, they have these difficulties, but dyslexic learners also have such an amazing brain. And I think it's really important that we encourage them to see their differences as something special and not something that's going to hold them back. And tap into things that they love, and how can we incorporate that into our teaching and just bring out the best in them. On a day-to-day basis, our dyslexic learners have to work so much harder than our non-dyslexic learners. Not to say that our non-dyslexic learners aren't working hard, but just to overcome everyday things that aren't a challenge to us, but are a challenge to someone with dyslexia. So they're going to be exhausted at the end of the day, and I do think this is another thing that needs to be taken into consideration when we're putting all this work onto them, in the school day and then at home as well. It's just little things that we can do that will help support this. They can often feel demoralised and frustrated. You may not see this, you may not know this because they won't tell you, but they're looking at a board and they're seeing all their friends scribbling all this down, getting everything done, not having to think about their answers, not having to stop and keep looking and checking and think, oh, actually, where am I? What am I doing? For a learner that is a bright kid but has dyslexia, this can be so frustrating and demoralising. And also then that will impact their self-esteem. And sometimes they can hide their difficulties until, older years. When they get into like Key Stage 4, it can be that they've got this far on their, because of their academic ability, but it's now that, the pressure is switched on and they find things a lot more difficult. therefore they do have incredibly creative brains. So let's try and tap into that and let them be creative and let them their creativity shine through. For small things can make a huge difference to our dyslexic learners. And I'm not going to give you loads of points to go away with, just little things. Time is a huge thing. So allowing them time to think before they answer something, allowing them time to read. If you've given this class something to read, allow them time to read it and reread it. Lots of the kids that I speak to in our school, they find it difficult to work at a pace the same as their peers, because even just reading the question, you know, someone without dyslexia would be able to read the question and think of an answer. A dyslexic learner will often need to reread the question 3, maybe 4 times before they've even got it into their brain to then start thinking about the answer. So they need time in tests, time in the classroom, time to just think, and even in between, you know, tasks, going from one task to another task in the classroom. Things like sharing your PowerPoints with them, you know, airdrop it to them. They've got it there on their screen. Some of them have got their iPad set up so that they can have the information read to them. They just stick their headphones in and whatever's on that PowerPoint they can listen to. Some of them change the colour of their screen so you know that they can see it clearer. Some of them change the font, some of them change the size of the font. So if you can share, and also then they've got it there to refer back to. If you can share the PowerPoints or you put it on your Google Classrooms, however you do it, if they've got it there to refer back to, it's really useful to them, or to refer to in the class, not just to refer back to after the class. And we find as well parents at home find it useful to have the information, especially if they're trying to help with home learning or things like that. Or if you haven't got it on a PowerPoint, you know, print, some reading, print it, or share documents, just however is easiest. Sharing the documents so they can have it in front of them will make a huge difference. And then they can use things like reading pens and their iPad to support their difficulties. When it comes to PowerPoints, please make sure that they're not on black on white, because that's really difficult. So even just a cream, if you have that as your standard, the font is clear and you don't make your PowerPoints too busy. Too much information on a PowerPoint slide is really difficult for the dyslexic brain to sort of get through. They just want the key facts on a PowerPoint and not too much busyness. And multi-sensory teaching methods are also really, we know this, but you know, just a picture alongside what you're talking about, or stop so they can have a chat with each other. You know, not too much teach talk. They will just switch off. It's too much information. They need time to process what you've said. They need time to process what you've read. They need time to process what's been talked about. So, you know, having pictures to support this, keywords to support this is also really useful. You know, just a list of keywords, or just some keywords dotted on the table with supporting pictures. Anything like that, you know, that will support the whole class. It won't just be just individual to the dyslexic students. It will be, you know, useful for all the students. And if it's just something that happens, then they won't feel like they're being singled out also. And we talk a lot about task sheets, and I'd like to show an example of a task sheet, which I will. But you know, break the tasks down, and again, that just allows that processing time. It allows them time to think about what has been asked for them to do, and then they've got time to plan it, and then they've got time to do it. So just breaking the task down. They don't have to then think, right, what did they ask me? What do I now need to do? If they've got it in front of them, then that is really helpful to them, and they don't feel like they have to keep asking. They don't feel lost, or then they don't ask, and then they are lost, and they get in trouble for not doing it. So having a task sheet, or any form of way of breaking the task down, and you don't have to write these physically. You could have them on your iPad, or have it on the board, or have it so you can then airdrop task sheets to them, or put up on the board, right, we're going to do this for 10 minutes, then we're going to have a little chat about this for 2 minutes, then we're going to do this for another 10 minutes. You know, just breaking the whole lesson down so it's manageable. And then again, encouraging the use of technology. You know, we've got these iPads, let's use them. They're really useful for our dyslexic students in many ways. You know, they can film lessons, they can voice record, they can get the iPad to read to them. There's lots of ways that they can use it, and I think it's really important that we encourage that, because it encourages independent learning, which then means they can go on, and you know, because they're not going to have LSAs in the classroom when they go on to university or college even. You know, it's a different way of working, and if we can set them up now ready to be independent going forward, then I do think that that is really huge. And I think if we encourage it, then they won't feel like it's a chore or a difficulty, because it will just become their normal way of working. And I also think things like, you know, writing frames are really important. So I've talked about keywords, having some writing frames, some sentence starters. I know this does happen, but just little things will make a huge difference to our dyslexic learners.